And the show continues. The Senate has passed another landmark anti-corruption bill. That's the Whistleblower Protection Bill.
Yes, indeed. Now, the bill, which seeks to encourage and facilitate the disclosures of improper conduct of public officers and public bodies, was presented by the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters. The bill aims to ensure that persons who make disclosures and persons who may suffer reprisals in relation to such disclosures are protected under the law.
It also specifies who is qualified to make disclosure of improper conduct, the procedure for making disclosures, and the protection due to whistleblowers.
The passage of the bill will guarantee adequate protection for potential whistleblowers against reprisals, victimizations, job losses, etc. 4. That the provision that contemplates monetary reward for whistleblowers whose information lead to discovery of looted funds, proceeds of crime, or improper conduct is a laudable and innovative provision of this bill. The provision will further strengthen the policy currently being adopted by the federal government, which is already yielding positive results.
To provide for the protection against victimization of persons who make these disclosures and to reward individuals who make disclosures and for related matters 2017 is already a third time and passed. Being able to pass this whistleblower protection bill, which is all part of our effort to strengthen the fight against corruption. I think a landmark has been made today, and this will definitely help in those patriotic individuals who risk their lives and everything, ensuring that we fight corruption, and will by this law be able to protect them, encourage others to pass, and at the same time also be able to have strong laws that also will discourage those that want to misabuse this law.
Yes, indeed. Well, joining us in the studio is a lawyer, Ahmed Abbas. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for coming.
It's good to have you.
Thank you.
Well, some analysts like yourself, of course you are a lawyer, have said that this particular law, this whistleblower blowing law, let me just put it that way, the layman's language, will be a big test for, how Nigerians are loyal and really, really serious about this anti-corruption war. Do you agree? Will it be a real big test for us?
For me, there is absolutely nothing new about the whistleblowers law. The problem in Nigeria is not about laws. We have extant laws that have made provision for so many of the challenges we have in this country. The problem has always been about implementation and enforcement. It's not about new laws. The institutions are terribly weak and incompetent. That's why you find that there are still some governors, as from the era of Obasanjo, 1999 to 2003, who are still standing trial with the EFCC for corruption cases.
So you believe this will bring nothing new to the table?
I'm an optimist. I'm an optimist. But when a foundation is faulty, there is nothing you put on that foundation that will stand. It's about a culture. There is a culture in existence in Nigeria today. The political class have hijacked political powers and using it anyhow, anyway, to loot our resource and also ensure that the system does not hold them accountable. So when you arrest the big boys, the politicians, the political elites, they have the wherewithal to employ the services of 100 senior advocates of Nigeria to bog down a judicial criminal system.
So what exactly is this foundation that needs to be corrected? What is that foundation? Is it the rest of society? Is it the society itself that needs to say enough is enough for us to achieve any kind of traction
and what
at
institution
all? And what
can correct it?
Exactly.
Those presiding over your institution today do not believe in the project called Nigeria. Very simple. They do not believe in the project called Nigeria.
But do the people themselves believe in the project called Nigeria? Do Nigerians believe in Nigeria?
Let me be very honest with you. vast majority of Nigerians believe in the project called Nigeria. They are hard-working Nigerians. They simply want a society that will work. Vast majority, I can tell you 99% of Nigerians want a society that is working.
All right, so isn't that what the 8th Senate wants to do now by, passing this bill to law, headed by Senate President Bukola Saraki and the senators, saying that this bill is going to correct the anomalies making corruption thrive in the country? You don't think it's commendable?
I'm not saying it's not commendable. Whatever laws, procedures, rules and regulations that we can churn out to help fight corruption, to help put in processes that will hold people accountable and protect those that are willing to stick their neck out to say things must be done rightly. I'm for it. But I'm simply saying there is a culture presently. You see, your institutions are terribly weak. Very, very weak. And you also have men and women who do not have the requisite values to uphold the integrity of those institutions. Let me give you a typical example. A Nuhu Ribadu, very passionate about the war against corruption. Immediately, Obasanjo left power. A Yar'Adua regime came in. The forces of darkness, the forces of corruption went after him. Were you aware they almost kidnapped Nuhu Ribadu in Kuru? They went. He escaped assassination several times. In a democratic system, a man that you sent to policy and strategic school was in class in attendance, and he was almost kidnapped out of the school. For doing what? For fighting against corruption. And you also have a situation in this country where a man was tried for stealing. He was found not guilty, but he was found, tried in another jurisdiction for money laundering, the byproduct of stealing and fraud, and was found guilty. Doesn't make any sense to you? Doesn't make any sense.
Someone acquitted in Nigeria was sent to jail.
You were tried for stealing, funds unlawfully, and your court said no, he stole nothing. You go to another country, and the country say, well, we are seeing several houses and assets that you cannot define how you got them. They were proceeds of stealing.
But
and there was no explanation.
Isn't that because, according to the courts, the prosecution process, quoting in the case of the Danladi Umar CCB, that, or CCT actually, tribunal, that the prosecution was wishy-washy and that it was not strong enough to nail the suspect?
You have collaborators. There's a gang up. You have collaborators, and let me tell you this. I've said it on several fora. We have 4 sets of people that are responsible for the rot. Number 1, the law enforcement agencies sometimes are incompetent because the court is not a Father Christmas. You must be very scientific. Law is about science. Because like I said, there's substantive law and there's procedural law. When you're approaching the court has already defined, the laws have defined how you approach the court and marshal and present clinically your evidence. If you bungle your presentation, the court is not a Father Christmas. So we need capacity building. Even if we have to import, seek for international partnership and cooperation. We need to build the capacity of because they've been losing so many cases.
Especially based on technicalities.
Yes, especially based on technicality. Let me give you a typical example of Saraki's case, for example. The head of fund transfer in one of the banks was brought in as a witness. And they said the documents to establish fund transfer when Saraki was governor lost in a fire output. To me, it's sickening. It's sickening that a bank of that repute could come to the public to say documents for funds transfer Don't they have correspondent banks?
Is that part of the institutional rot if the banking system, the banking sector,
the entire system is rotten?
Has issues too.
The entire system is rotten. Let me give you a typical example. You go to banks, how long, I mean, these days you go to bank, you can't get mint notes within the banking system. Is that not so? But you go to parties and garages and you see your money being sold in the public. The system is rotten.
All right, let's look at the penalties.
Let me just add. Okay. Law enforcement, they need capacity building. Lawyers, we also have senior advocates. I say this with all sense of great responsibility to so many of our senior advocates who have earned, you know, their sonship. Yeah. But we also have some of them that are partners in crime, that are not upholding the values of the legal profession. They are also collaborators because they help to bog down the system. If you know your client is innocent, why would you spend 10 years trying to bog down a system? If your client is innocent, you should be in a hurry to clear his name so that he can go back to a life of normalcy. But when they know they have something to hide, they'll bring all manner of application from the High Court to the Court of Appeal to the Supreme Court. It's nauseating.
All right. So let's look at
and the judiciary is also culpable because there are some of them that are also corrupt.
That's why some judges have been accused of.
Yes, they are also corrupt. We must tell ourselves because we're in a moral crisis. Except we want to tell us, you know, it was Martin Luther King who said, look, the true measure of a man is not where you stand in times of comfort and controversy.
Well, some
but
judges
where you
have been
stand in terms of challenges. This country is going through terrible challenge and moral crisis, and we must speak the truth.
Yes, I want you to comment on the penalties put in place. Some African countries, of course, have the whistleblower law as well. Uganda, Ghana, and of course, South Africa. Now, if you look at South Africa's penalties for false information in the whistleblower law, it's at least 2 years or a fine. But when you come back to the one passed by the Nigerian Senate now, it is at least 5 years. And of course, they face a fine of 10 million naira. How will that encourage people to come forward to blow the whistle?
That's why I'm not a diplomat. I don't have the capacity. See, when you deliberately make laws that will end up not achieving set objective, that is a disincentive for the very thing you want, it's so discouraging. Because, look, most times you can innocently give an information that you thought was correct. At the investigation point, if the security agencies discover that the information is false, I do not think a man should be penalized except there is a clear-cut established case of deliberate misinformation. Why will you say a man gives information to you? Let me give you an example, for example. Let me just create a scenario. You give information to EFCC that you see people moving Ghana must go in the middle of the night at about 2 a.m. into a house. And if EFCC investigates and finds out that you have the right legitimately to move those money, what happens? Have you given false information?
Okay, so then again, let's bring in this case. Abdul Mumin Jibrin of the House of Reps was more or less a whistleblower, but was suspended for about 181 legislative days. Would you say that the whistleblower policy, now law, does not protect a person like Abdul Mumin Jibrin? Or should it or should it not?
It ought to. It ought to. And there's this other case, what is it? Foreign Affairs, one of the officers of Foreign Affairs Department or Ministry.
Yes. The Women Affairs.
We learned he has been sacked.
Yes, Women Development Center. You have an issue with the Ministry of Aviation. You know, a number of people that were sacked. And it obviously on the basis of that this whistleblower policy, law has been put in place.
See, the only incentive in any society to fight crime is ensure that those who commit crime will make it very easy for them to serve their jail term, to be tried, sentenced, and to serve out their jail time. If you do not have that mechanism in place, if that mechanism is not watertight enough, if people can stand trial for 9, 10, 12 years, bog down the system, retrial and retrial and retrial, if there is no successful prosecution of criminals in any society, the laws you make are just going to be mere tissue papers. My philosophy is this. We already have robust laws. The mechanism for enforcing them is what we should be thinking about.
Okay, it almost makes you want to ask whether there was any need for this particular law
to be put in place. Anyway, we'll ask more questions, but we need to go on a short break and return in a moment. We're still going to be looking at the whistleblower law passed by the Senate when we return. Stay with us.
All right, you're welcome back. Like you know, on this show every day since the 6 Igbonla College boys were kidnapped, we have been following the story, and we've been having different resource persons come in to give their own side and their own view about, you know, what has been going on.
And that's never the thought of the station.
Absolutely. Before we started with this segment right now, we looked at the 60 days of the boys in the den of the kidnappers. Well, our guest said something about the schools having been closed by the Lagos state government because of kidnapping.
Vacation classes.
You know, vacation classes, as a matter of fact. But reports just reaching us actually confirm that the state government has asked the schools to reopen.
Yes.
The schools are not closed for summer, summer school, more or less. They can go for their classes and, you know, have a sense of safety even as they go to the schools.
And the safety of the state is
clarify
paramount,
that.
indeed.
Absolutely. But we'll continue with our discussion with Ahmed Abbas, a lawyer, taking a look at the whistleblower law that has just been signed by the Nigerian Senate, and we've been looking at all of this. Well, according to you, this whistleblower law is not the cure-all to Nigeria's corruption issues. So what are the loopholes really that you see that may make it not to work?
See, it's not about the loopholes in the law.
Okay.
The law is brilliant, fine, on its own. But I'm saying that most times, what is the purpose of the law? The purpose of the law, the spirit of the law, is we want to create an enabling environment for people to have the courage to stand up for what is right, to ensure that they give information for the arrest of people who are abusing the system. That I'm saying that, look, for you to look at how effective this law would be, you better look at the structures you have in place, on ground. Now look, even if we all become whistleblowers, let me put it that way, if all of us become whistleblowers and we blow the whistle on virtually all the political elites, because we know of the honest truth is that except we want to deceive ourselves, we know that the political class are looting this nation dry.
And some could outsmart the whistleblowers.
Some
change location of whatever loot they stashed away, and then the whistleblower gets into stormy waters.
even the ones that we have caught red-handed, the question I'm asking you is, where are they today?
Very good question, and that's where we're going to leave it this morning. Well, so far, at least we've been told by the Finance Ministry that about 2,351 whistleblowers have tipped that ministry.
And of course, there are still calls for them to name those that stashed away those monies.
Yes, indeed. Name and shame. Will that solve the problem? All right,
thank you very much, Ahmed Abbas, legal practitioner. We just have to let him
we have to thank you first.
Thank you very much for your analysis,
Thank you.
and thank you for coming to the studio.